Welcome back to Seasoned Liberally. Today we're going to be making one of my favorite dishes that I like to order out. It is butter chicken, so stick around. Every Thursday, I get together with a good friend of mine and we hang out and we have dinner together. We order delivery, so he comes over and he'll call me on the way and I'll ask him what he wants. And maybe I would say a quarter of the time he wants Indian. And what we normally do is order just a giant thing of butter chicken with some naan to dip into it. You watched the naan last week. We needed something to dip into the butter chicken for this week, so we made it last week. Now we're gonna make the butter chicken to go along with it. So to get started, we've got to do our mise en place. So let's get some of the things cut up and ready to go. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to dice an onion. All right, I'm just going to make like a regular size dice here, relatively small. Not going to go too small. I'm not going to do like a brunoise or anything. But I am going to dice it small. Eventually, we're going to try to brown this, right? So we're going to try to brown these pieces of onion. And when we brown them, that will mean that the smaller they are, the more edges and pieces will get browned. So the bigger the piece, the less browning that happens, and we definitely want some browning in here, so we want to go relatively small. All right, this recipe also requires 5 cloves of garlic. If that feels like a lot of garlic to you, you can add a little less. I wouldn't add more. There's a lot of garlic in this recipe. So now, to get the garlic out of its little skins, it's always easier if you just nip the little root end off of the garlic. And if you cut the root end off, a tiny tap will just release the garlic from its wrapper. It just falls right out. These are going to be minced. So we're going to mince this fine. So we're going to get rid of the root ends here. We're going to get rid of all the paper, and then we're going to mince this garlic up. Now to mince garlic, what you want to do is you want to get on your table here, on your cutting board, and just smash, right? Smash each clove down first. Put it in a pile. Make sure each one is nicely smashed. Little piece left on there. All right, so now that I have my garlic in a pile, I'm gonna start rocking my blade. And here we go, nice mound of minced garlic. Let's add that to our ramekin. I made this ramekin in pottery class. I'm super proud of myself. We are going to need for this recipe 4 teaspoons of fresh ginger. So if you have fresh ginger, you can find this nowadays. There's a tube of it in the supermarket. It's like comes in a tube. You could just squeeze it if you want. That stuff does not have the same sort of potency that fresh ginger would. What you want to do is just like pluck off one of the fronds, and then the way to get the skin off of this is with the side of a spoon. If I just drag my spoon across this, you can see I'm just pulling the skin right off, and I want to work my way around the whole piece of ginger, just dragging it, pulling the spoon off the side, and it pulls the skin along with it. I'm not pressing too hard, you know, medium pressure, and it comes right off. This is the way you peel ginger, because if you tried to use a peeler, it would dig in too deep. You don't need to go that deep to get it peeled. And I'm just pulling it right off the side. Now the little nubules on the side can be a little more difficult. I use the front of the spoon for that. Nubule is a technical term. No, it's not. I just made it up. All the skin is now off my ginger, and I need to grate it. But I'm pretty sure that's not going to be enough, so I am going to do another second piece of this, just so I know that I have enough when I grate it. If you see any like gross parts or discolored parts, you can just pull those off if you can. And if it's not coming off with the spoon side, just use your knife. Cut it off. This is fibrous, right? So there's a lot of fiber in here. I don't know if you can see that. There's a ton of fiber in here. So when I cut it, it's very woody. And that's why we're going to grate it on a grater. Microplane works great for this. Microplane makes tons of little graters like this. And so I'm going to use a microplane to grate this down. All right, so now underneath there's a bunch. I'm going to tap a little bit to get some of it off of there. This is one of those things that you can kind of eyeball. It's not a big deal, right? This is about 4. This is probably perfectly 4. So 1 tablespoon is 3. And if I scoop the rest of this stuff up, I'm about 3.5. I'll do a little extra. Just a little more. All right. That's 4 teaspoons of ginger. Okay, 2 more things to cut. We have a Serrano chili, okay? Now, depending on how hot you want this to be, you can leave the seeds in if you want. I'm gonna take the seeds out of mine. I normally order it mild or medium. If you want, leave a little bit of seeds in here, right? Leave it a little bit hot, it's okay. The white part in here that holds the seeds, that's the part that's hot, right? That's called I think it's called the pith. And so as I cut it open, you can see this piece here inside, this is all where all the heat is, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run my knife alongside of there and pull it out. And I'm not going to be super diligent about getting it all out of here either, because what I don't want it to be completely devoid of heat. And if you notice that it's taken a little bit for it to come out, you can always use a spoon to just pull it right out of there, right? I can just pull all that out. I'm going to take about half of it out of this side, and I'm going to leave the rest because I want it to be a little warm for me, but you can do what you want. You know, leave it all in there if you want. Seeds aren't going to hurt anything. It's going to be nice and hot, and if that's what you like, do it. Now, I'm just going to julienne this, and then I'm going to dice it nice and fine. Last piece of mirepoix is some cilantro. Now, cilantro stems are edible, okay? They're soft, they are tender, and they work in your food. So you don't have to be as diligent with this herb as you would with other herbs, where you got to really be careful because the stems are very woody. Even parsley can get, you know, some of these stems can be very, very woody. You wouldn't want to just serve somebody parsley stems. I do use parsley stems when I cook, but I cook for a long time. I cook the parsley stems. In this case, we want to make sure we don't really have to worry too much. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off the top here, right? And I'm going to mince that up nice and fine, and I'm going to keep my stems. And what I'm going to keep my stems for is later on, if I ever want to use these are great in sauces, right? I can mince these up. These freeze really well. You can mince these up and throw them in a sauce. In fact, my arroz con pollo, you can actually, if you wanted to, use some celery stems in that sauce as it cooks. It gives it a whole nother level of flavor. Now, I like to take my cilantro and really bunch it up quite a bit, right? I'll smash it down, bunch it up quite a bit, and then I roll my fingers over the top of it and then slice down. I want to try to get as much as I can in the first go. Discolored leaf, get rid of it, right? And if you get it crunched up and sliced pretty well in the first run, it minces pretty easy. Now this doesn't have to be super minced because this is going to be mostly a garnish on the top of it, but I did want to get it cut. So I'm going to put this away and we're going to get started cooking. Okay, we got a pan nice and warm. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter to that and just melt it down. Now the name of the game on this recipe is we want to get the water out of stuff, right? That's the main idea for a lot of stuff we do, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the water out of these onions and the garlic, the ginger, and the serrano at the beginning. So we're going to melt this butter down, and we're going to cook our onion for maybe a minute or 2, add a little salt just to get that water to release. Then we'll add the rest of our vegetables. If you want to use some of that ghee you made last week, you could always drop a little ghee in here instead of the butter. Okay, our butter's starting to foam. We're going to throw in our onion. You can hear it sizzle, which is good. You toss it in that butter. Get it nice and tossed in that butter. Get it really coated. And now, not a lot of salt, just like, you know, half a teaspoon or something. But something I really like to do with onion very often is just add a tiny touch of salt, and it sort of speeds up that whole process of breaking down those cell walls, which is almost always what you're trying to do with onion. You're almost always trying to soften onion. All right, it's been a couple minutes. We're going to add in our garlic, our ginger. This is going to start to smell so good. This is when you wish that you could have like a plug-in that you could smell-o-vision. Serrano chili. We're going to give this a stir. Oh, I missed a little garlic, or missed a little ginger here. Don't skimp on stuff. Give it a stir. Oh my gosh, does that smell amazing. Such a great melding of flavors. Oh. Yeah, Yankee Candle Shop, they should do this. So now this has got to cook down, and it's going to cook for about 10 minutes. We want to start to actually brown it. Put on medium-high heat. Let it cook. While that cooks, we have to clean our chicken thighs. So what we want to do is we want to cut any big, obvious, chunky pieces of fat off your chicken thighs, right? Now these are boneless, skinless thighs. You can go buy bone-in, skin-on thighs, pull the skin off and debone them yourself. Normally you have to take like a knife and debone the top of it. I was gonna buy them this time. I couldn't find them at the store. It's snowing here, so it's, you know, everything's gone. It's like in the Midwest, if it snows a tiny little bit, everything is off the shelves. So, so there wasn't anything, I couldn't find them there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trim these. I promise in the future, I will try to find bone-in, skin-on thighs and show you how to debone them. But you wanna just take out any big, ugly lumps of fat that are in here. You just wanna clean them off. Any pieces that you find that are really, really fatty, you just wanna take your knife, run it across the edge and just cut it directly off, right? What I don't want is a big, ugly glob of fat to stay on this. I want it to be relatively clean of fat. And you're gonna do this to the whole 2 pounds of chicken. This is 2 pounds of chicken I'm gonna do it to, and I'm just gonna cut all the fat off of this chicken. And you wanna try to be as careful as you can to try not to cut any of the chicken off, obviously, right? And a few minutes before this goes in the oven, I'm actually gonna salt these chicken thighs, because they are going to get put into yogurt. So we're going to actually put yogurt on these before we broil them, but we want to make sure that they're salted properly. So we are going to salt them before they get the yogurt on them and let them sit with a little bit of that salt on it so it can sink in a little bit. You could salt the yogurt, but I'm not crazy about that. I'd much prefer to salt the chicken itself and then put yogurt on it afterwards. And then I'm going to take my salt and just hit it with some salt. nicely salted. Put them back on the plate. And I'm just gonna let them sit, because they're gonna go in yogurt in a little bit, but we're gonna let them sit for now. All right, it's starting to brown. It's starting to stick a little bit on the bottom too. You can see I have a little bit sticking to the bottom, so I'm just gonna keep this on just for a little bit more. Now this is absolute mush now, which is what you want. But I have to add to this my spices. I have garam masala. This is a very common spice you can find at the supermarket. It is a mixture of spices, many different spices. It's got a little cinnamon, a little cardamom, a little coriander. There's some cumin in here. It's a really wonderful spice. I have some in my house at all times. This is a full tablespoon garam masala. I have a teaspoon of ground coriander, a teaspoon of ground cumin, and a half teaspoon of black pepper. And this is all freshly ground. If you can freshly grind it, all the better. That's gonna smell so good. My goodness, is that amazing. That is just so fragrant. We're just gonna cook this for a minute or two. We wanna kind of toast the spices in what's left of that butter that's in there and let it really get into, soak into all the nooks and crannies in there. So now to this, I'm going to add about a half a cup of tomato paste. And I saw this in this cute little half cup container. It's a little more than a half cup, but I'm not going to put it all in. But you want a half cup of tomato paste in here. Now I'm adding this in, and we're going to stir this in just for a second. Try to get that paste mixed with all this stuff. Try to get it distributed nice. It's starting to really sit on the bottom there. And I don't want it to burn, right, onto the bottom. So I stir it up nice, get it moving, add a full cup and a half of water to this. And now I'm just gonna start spinning it around, dissolving everything. I'm gonna bring it up to a boil. I'm gonna try to get all the bits, all that fond off the bottom, and just stir it up. And this has to come to a boil, so we're gonna bring it up to a boil. Now at this point, we are gonna add to this 1 tablespoon of sugar. Gonna let it mix down as it's coming to a boil. And now what I'm trying to do is trying to make it so it doesn't burn. So I'm stirring it a lot. It's on medium-high heat, so it's gonna come up to a temperature here soon. I'm also at this point too gonna add a little salt, right? You're gonna salt it to taste later, but we wanna add some salt now. There's gonna be more food in here, right? I'm adding cream and butter to this afterwards, unsalted butter. So there's gonna be more volume into this. So you can hear it start to come to temperature here, and this is like lava, right? It's thick, it can burn you. So be careful. Okay, now what we're gonna do is, we're gonna do 2 things. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take it off the heat. I'm gonna shut my little deal off here. And I'm gonna take this nice warm liquid, I'm gonna add cream to it, heavy cream. I'm just gonna stir it up. This is 1 cup of heavy cream. And now I'm gonna try to get it all mixed up as much as I can, because I wanna get everything off the bottom for this next step. All right, one of my favorite tools in the kitchen, the immersion blender. Be careful with this, all right? These little vents on the side will shoot hot liquid across your kitchen. So we put it in, we turn it down, we start it up. We notice that nothing's happening, nothing's shooting out, that's okay. We now immersion blend the whole piece here. I'm just stirring it. Just get it so it's nice and smooth. Oh, it smells so good, my goodness. All right, I'm gonna take what I can off of this immersion blender and I'm gonna put this back on the heat just briefly. Now, I'm gonna take 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter and 1 nub at a time, using my spoon, I'm just gonna stir it around until I don't see the butter anymore. What I'm trying to do is create an emulsion here. I'm just trying to stir it so that as the butter melts, it creates an emulsion with the liquid in here, and those 2 particles sort of become suspended together. Now, if I cook it too long or too hot, it's going to, that butter, while it might disappear, it might actually turn into it might turn into more like a grease and break, and we don't want that. We want to just slowly stir it. Now I'm using a spoon. You can use a whisk if you want. Whisk is the proper way to do it, but why dirty something you don't need to? All right, my butter is gone. I'm gonna add the second one. You just want to keep an eye on it, see where it is. As it drags through, you'll see it pop up. And then once it's all gone, you're gonna take it off the top of the heat here, and we're gonna set it aside. And this is the key to butter chicken, right? This emulsion, this color of liquid, right? It's that sort of really orangish sort of color that you get from the tomato paste and then all those spices. And it smells so good in here. All right, I'm dragging it through, I don't see it. Okay, off it comes. Now I'm gonna cover this and set this on the side and let it sit while I cook the rest of my chicken off. All right. Now, we are gonna get started with our chicken. Now I salted it already. You can add a little more salt if you want, if you don't think you salted it well enough. I think I salted it quite well, so I'm not gonna add any more salt. What I am gonna do is add a 1/2 cup of Greek yogurt to this, and I'm gonna mix it with my hands. I'm gonna get it nice and mixed. Mix that chicken up nice and tight with all that Greek yogurt. There we go. Now I'm gonna set this bowl on the side for a minute or 2 while I get my pan ready. So broiler's on. The element is about 6 inches from the top of the top rack. That's where you want it to be. I have a wire rack inside of my cookie sheet, my sheet pan, and I'm gonna take out 2 pieces of this aluminum foil, so it's a little easier to clean up later. You don't have to do this stuff if you don't want to, but you're gonna be cleaning stuff out of your grate for a while if you don't. So it makes sense to do it. And this creates like a nice little platform. Pushes it closer to the element, which is key. All right, I'm gonna olive oil this. Just hopefully some of it will release a little easier. Just rub a little olive oil on it with your hands, right? Get it so it's nice and greasy, ready to go. And then I pull out my chicken, and we are gonna broil it under the broiler. If you notice that one side is cooking faster than the other side on here, like the back is cooking faster than the front, spin your pan around, right? Absolutely key to make sure that everything stays relatively even. Now this is gonna get a char on it, which is what you want. When you order this kind of food in a restaurant, sometimes they'll put it in a tandoori, right? We want to get a nice char on here that's going to add to the flavor. So I'm going to wash my hands off. I'm going to put it in the oven. All right, this is going to go in the oven. Broiler, under the broiler. You're going to cook it for about 8 to 10 minutes. You're going to pull it out. You're going to flip it. Put it back in. Cook it for 8 to 10 more minutes. Find the biggest, chunkiest piece of chicken you have and test it for 175, something like that. You don't want to get sick off chicken, so you want to make sure your chicken is completely cooked. So we're going to put this in 8 minutes, and then you'll see I'll flip it for you. All right, they've been in there for 8 minutes. As you can see, they're getting a little char on them, which is what you want. And turn them over now. I'm going to poke a couple holes in this here too, so it'll drain a little bit. And I'm actually going to turn the whole contraption around so that the other side cooks a little bit too. All right, 8 more minutes. All right, our chicken is done. We are going to let it sit uncovered 5 minutes. Most meat you should probably let it sit anyway. We're going to let it sit. Then we're going to cut it up, put it in our sauce, get to eating. All right, our chicken has been cooling for 5 minutes, and we are going to cut it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut it into little chunks like so. So that it will coat with that butter chicken sauce we made. And we'll have nice little pieces that we can spear in our dish. And this chicken is perfectly cooked. You can just see it. It's juicy. You know, turned out it was a total of 18 minutes that it cooked in my oven. So the sauce was a little bit cool, so I gently warmed it back up. You don't want to put it under a raging boil. You just want to gently warm it back up. You can see it's steaming again, which is exactly where we want to be. We're going to drop our chicken pieces in here and toss it. The chicken's warm still. We're going to toss it inside here. Nice, lots of chicken pieces in here. Looking good. Now we are going to hit the top of this with a little cilantro and stir it in. Cilantro is going to make this dish. It's going to really bring it all together. I am also going to probably garnish a touch of cilantro. So let me put a little bit of this chicken in here. All right, let's see what we got. A little bit of this rice. Get a little piece of chicken. Oh my goodness. Why do you order out ever? It's so good. Really, genuinely, didn't take a ton of time and is just outstanding. Just all the flavors. And the thing is like, I'm grinding my own spices at home. It's got so much spice flavor in here. You can taste all those different spice layers that we added earlier. You know, it's got the chicken turned out perfect. It cooked perfectly. You ever get butter chicken and it's got the bones in it still? It's so maddening because you wind up sometimes catching a whole bone or a giant piece of cartilage. Here, we don't have that at all. It's just perfectly cooked chicken and it's all boneless, skinless already. The flavors in here, the herbal notes, the buttery creaminess of that heavy cream and butter that you put in here, that tomato flavor, it all just melds so well. What an amazing, amazing dish to make at home. It's not super hard. You can absolutely do it. And I promised last week, naan dipped into, in the sauce, so good. Man, it's like a meal in itself. I hope you enjoy these two recipes. I hope you cook them at home, and I hope once in a while you decide to cook from home instead of ordering out. Thanks for joining me today. Please like, share, subscribe. Hope you try this out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Catch you next time. Till then, season liberally.